These are the walls and cell blocks of Alcatraz, once dubbed Hell on Earth by the American press, a fortress of isolation that caged the nation's most notorious criminals. Since its closure in 1963, the island has stood as a solemn monument to history. But now a controversial idea is gaining traction. Reopening Alcatraz, not as a museum, but as a next-generation supermax prison. Recently, former President Donald Trump reignited this debate with a bold statement on social media. Rebuild and reopen Alcatraz. For too long, America has been stained by vicious, violent, repeat offenders. We will no longer tolerate those who spread bloodshed and chaos in our streets. I am directing the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the FBI, and Homeland Security to significantly reopen, expand, and rebuild Alcatraz. The statement lit a firestorm of controversy. Is this a real solution to rising crime, or just political theater? Today, we go behind the rusted gates of Alcatraz, examine its present condition, and explore the possibility and implications of resurrecting America's most infamous prison. If this story grabs you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to support more deep dive investigations like this one. Where do you send a man when no other prison in America dares to hold him? Welcome to the main cell house of Alcatraz, the beating heart of a fortress built for fear. Within these walls once lived names etched into criminal legend: Al Capone, Machine Gun, Kelly, and others deemed too dangerous for the outside world, or even for other prisons. To understand the level of threat these men posed, just look at the numbers. Alcatraz maintained one guard for every 3 inmates. In most U.S. prisons, that number is closer to 1 guard for every 250. This wasn't a place built to rehabilitate. It was a last resort, a steel tomb for those considered beyond saving. There's a phrase often whispered about this place: break the law, you go to prison. Break prison rules, you go to Alcatraz. And it wasn't just a slogan, it was a promise. Every inmate's journey began in the shower room. The moment they stepped in, their identity was stripped away, along with any sense of privacy. Uniforms were issued, names became numbers, and just like that, they belonged to Alcatraz. Surprisingly, much of this area still stands today. The layout, the fixtures, the bones of the space remain virtually untouched by time. Now we move upward, to the cell blocks where these men lived out their sentences. A standard cell, like number 100, was brutally simple. A narrow steel bed, a toilet, a small sink, and 2 shelves. No doors, no curtains, no escape from the eyes around you. It's these very cells that lie at the center of ongoing human rights debates. Each one stands only about 7 feet tall, and the doorways even shorter, forcing many to physically bow their heads just to step inside. To modern human rights advocates, confining people in such cramped, dehumanizing spaces borders on the inhumane. Alcatraz was built with 3 tiers of stacked cell blocks, capable of holding up to 325 inmates. At its peak, however, the prison housed no more than 270 at a time. From this vantage point, you can see cell 127 on the ground level, and directly above it, cell 327 on the 3rd tier. This layout reveals the intense vertical density the prison relied on to maximize containment within limited space. So what would it actually cost to bring Alcatraz back as a functioning prison? Back in 1962, just before it shut down, a government report estimated the renovation cost at around $6 million. Adjusted for today's inflation, that's more than $63 million. But the real number? It would likely be far higher. Most of the plumbing system has rusted out or been completely corroded. The concrete, after more than a century of salt air and brutal weather, is badly deteriorated. In some areas, the walls are so decayed, you can literally fit a hand through the cracks. This isn't a matter of fresh paint or a few replacement bolts. Rebuilding Alcatraz would require a complete overhaul. New freshwater pipelines brought to the island, full structural reinforcement, and state-of-the-art security systems installed from the ground up. In theory, anything is possible with an unlimited budget. But in reality, this would be one of the most expensive and complex prison reconstructions ever attempted. The idea of bringing back Alcatraz as a futuristic super prison isn't new. But what does that say about where we're headed as a society? Are we solving the problem of crime or just building stronger cages? To answer those questions, we need to dig deeper into how modern supermax facilities are designed, what Alcatraz truly represents, and whether this island fortress can or should be resurrected in today's world. Many have drawn comparisons to El Salvador's CCOT, the Terrorism Confinement Center, which opened in 2023. Built to house up to 40,000 inmates, CCOT spans over 23 hectares and features 19 watchtowers, electrified fencing, and a surveillance system so intense that even footsteps echo louder by design. Inmates are packed into bare concrete cells with less than 1 square meter of space per person, far below international standards, and are held in near total isolation from sunlight and the outside world. Designed with zero focus on rehabilitation, the facility has been criticized as a warehouse of containment rather than justice. Alcatraz, by contrast, is a crumbling relic of another era. Constructed in the early 20th century, it was never designed to meet the demands of a modern supermax facility. Retrofitting it today would require far more than basic renovations. Entire systems would need to be rebuilt from the ground up. The reinforced concrete is heavily corroded by decades of salt air, much of the plumbing is unusable, and the entire island lacks the infrastructure needed for 21st century security standards. Legally, Alcatraz sits in a unique position. It isn't governed by the state of California, it's managed by the National Park Service and owned by the federal government. That means a president, like Donald Trump, could theoretically push forward with plans to reopen the facility without needing approval from state lawmakers, potentially fast-tracking such a controversial project. On the island once stood a powerful symbol of authority, the Warden's Mansion. With 15 rooms and a commanding view of San Francisco Bay, it served as both residence and administrative hub. At one time, it hosted elegant dinners, formal receptions, and gatherings that stood in stark contrast to the life inside the cell blocks. But in 1970, during the Native American occupation of Alcatraz, the mansion was burned and destroyed. Its ruins now serve as a haunting reminder. That fire didn't just mark the end of an era of absolute control, it became a turning point, transforming Alcatraz from a fortress of punishment into a symbol of protest in the fight for indigenous rights. Reopening Alcatraz raises a cascade of tough questions. On one side, supporters argue it would send a strong message about law and order, removing the most dangerous offenders from society and reviving the ultimate penal symbol. On the other, critics warn of the staggering costs. Estimates range from hundreds of millions to over $1 billion, along with severe structural decay and serious human rights concerns, especially around isolation and psychological harm. So here's the deeper question. In a civilized society, should places like Alcatraz exist as operational prisons to punish, or only remain as historical monuments to warn future generations? Should we invest vast resources to resurrect a fortress of containment, or preserve its legacy as a reminder of the costs of dehumanization? What do you think? Would reopening Alcatraz strengthen public safety or risk erasing history and repeating past mistakes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you feel that pull to keep searching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a step in our journey to uncover what still hides on this earth. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.